Welcome back, Tiger fans, to Rockin' Radio's football podcast live. I'm Nate Edwards. That's Nathan Hurst. This is Before the Box Score. We are live. It's Mississippi State week. Get excited. Missouri Tigers are still ranked in the college football playoff. Nathan Hurst, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm ranked top 25. That's how I am. They're ranked 23rd at the moment. That's because there's no one else better to rank above them. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
Let's stick in those rankings as long as we can. Why not?
Yeah. And there's a roadmap to do that. But yeah, they fall out of the AP and the coaches in the college football playoff because that doesn't really matter once you get past 12. Said, sure, we'll keep you in there. So once again, Missouri is ranked for another week, and that's cool and good. So let's talk about Missouri. Obviously, we're still smarting from the loss on Saturday to South Carolina. I think we all had some form of therapeutic outpouring over the past couple of days as we have processed the loss, processed what that means. RIP Missouri's playoff chances. They last still 11 months, so that's pretty good. But if they weren't done before, they're certainly done now. And so I feel like everyone's kind of getting navel gazing, kind of looking back at a season that has been lost. And I don't think we're there yet, but it's certainly there's a finality to not making the expanded playoff, Nathan Hurst. And like, for me, it would have been nice. I know that the team talked about this being the goal. I said that it should be a goal. But I do not feel some crushing sadness because they're not going to be in it. How do you feel about the playoff now being dead and gone for Missouri?
I mean, it's a bummer, but I've accepted that since the day that they lost to Alabama. I mean, I didn't think that there was any shot that they were going to get it anyway. If there was, it was a 2% chance. So I've had a couple more weeks to absorb it and just let it soak in. And if we're going to be really honest, I really accepted that after the Texas A&M game, because after that result, I didn't think there was any chance that they were going to go in and beat Alabama. And then if they didn't win that game, then you could logically follow that they weren't going to make it. So I had a few weeks to let it soak in. Disappointing that they're not going to make the playoff. Absolutely. Is this a lost season? No, by no means yet. That doesn't mean it couldn't turn out that way. There's still a lot of football left to be played. But it is certainly not a lost season at this moment, and there is potential for it to be something much more than a lost season.
For sure. And I think this team is getting compared to 2008 a lot, not only from a returning offensive production standpoint, not only from a potential Heisman candidate standpoint, not only from a you broke out the year before and now you're legit now, as far as preseason stuff goes, national respect sort of goes, the preseason polls go. Like there's a lot of similarities here. The 2017 seemingly came out of nowhere, made a run for the national title, didn't get it, and then came back and returned to everybody. So, and that's similar to from 23 to 24. So there's a lot of similarities there. And then like the 2018, you lose to what is considered to be a peer conference foe. In 08, they lost at home to Oklahoma State. This year, they lost to A&M on the road. But that really kind of shone a light, like, oh, geez, what? Like, vibes were good, and now you've lost. But there's a difference between 2008 and 2024 for me, and I think for everybody else too, is that was like there's a finality to it. When you were in the BCS, you had to build a team in like 4 years and like get them to, especially in Missouri, get them to a point where you had all that talent peaking at the same time, and then have that experience, and then bring them back and like make sure, like there is a process to it. Gary Pinkel always talked about the process, and like you had to lead up to it, and there was only 2 teams. And you lost one game, and then that was it. And for Mizzou, it was like, oh my God, well, that was our shot. When's the next time this is going to happen? Now I'm like, well, it's the transfer portal and NIL era. We didn't get it this time. Next time we have a manageable schedule and funds, we'll just go and bring in transfers and grow the talent, and we'll just make another run at the 12-team playoff, and maybe we'll get it then. So there's less of a, oh, this will never happen again. And more, my sadness is, well, it didn't happen this time. I wonder the next time it's going to happen, with the full understanding that it is going to happen at some point.
Absolutely. And you're going back to 2007, and 2008, really. You're competing with all the top tier programs, the highest resource programs for 2 spots. There are only 2 spots up for grabs. Now there are 12, and if the tea leaves are being read right, that's going to be 14 or 16 here pretty soon too. So the window is much wider. It's not a 2-team window. It is a 12, maybe 14, maybe 16 in the future window. So that is something that is entirely doable for this Mizzou program. They have finished in the top 12, the top 14, the top 16 several times in the last couple decades. So there's no reason that can't. And that was with a weaker recruiting head coach and staff, no NIL, which gives us an advantage over where the program was previously. So the window is not slammed closed by any means. So yeah, that definitely is not as kind of depressing thinking about that way, because we had no idea that 2013 was coming in 2008. But even then, it was 5-6 years later. I mean, it took an entirely new cycled out round of talent to come in before they were able to reach that again. And as you said, we had the basically exact same schedule this year as next year, just flipped. And in some ways, it might actually be a little easier because our toughest games were on the road. Those are now going to be at home next year. The easier games will be that we're at home, we're going to be on the road. And there's no easy schedule in the SEC, but it's going to once again be one of the easiest that exists. So you get the right guy playing quarterback, fill a couple other holes, and you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And the playoff favors the SEC and the Big Ten. So, push comes to shove, especially when it gets expanded. Missouri as an SEC member is going to get the benefit of the doubt. So it's going to happen. It just didn't happen this year. And yeah, there's not we missed our one tiny little hole to run through. Like, it's like, okay, well, we'll get it next time. Not that it's going to be next year. It'd be nice if it was next year, but like, I'm not worried about it. They're going to be in the playoff at some point, and it's going to be cool. So it didn't happen this year. That sucks, but we'll try again next time. So along that navel gazing, again, this is almost kind of like a post-mortem, even though we still have 3 games to play. But I think a lot of people were frustrated by the loss to South Carolina and just the manner that it happened. Obviously, the offense fell into a hole in the second quarter. The defense got gashed and at the end of the fourth, and so there's a lot of what are we doing here? The team stunk, flashes of brilliance and flashes of incompetence. What is this? And I think we said it on the show, but that's just kind of what Mizzou is. When Eli Drinkwitz came in 2020, it's like, okay, this probably isn't how he wants to deploy his team. This isn't his team. These are all Odom guys. And then in 2021, you still didn't have a great quarterback selection, and your defense was okay, and then then it wasn't. In 2022, you finally got your defensive coordinator, but your quarterback was injured. In 2023, it all came together. You win 11 games, and now this year we have an injured quarterback and regression on the offense. So I think, I don't know, which is the true Eli Drinkwitz team, Nathan Hurst? Was 2023 the outlier in a positive way, or is 2024 an outlier in the negative way?
It's going to sound like a cop-out, but I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think they're both outliers. Mainly, I think 2023 might be not that in terms of the fact that he can't repeat that success, but the number of things that went right that entire season is a little bit of an outlier in terms of the lack of injuries, some close wins that perhaps could have easily flipped on a dime. There were a couple of close losses that could have also flipped, but it was the kind of the perfect storm of everything going right and going 11-2. And if everything goes right, they can go, with under Eli Drinkwitz, this team can go 11-2. I couldn't necessarily say that about previous regimes necessarily in the SEC. But in this SEC, if everything goes right, Eli Drinkwitz can produce an 11-2 team, which this year would have been a playoff team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the style of play on offense is at times very frustrating. But I think at this point, I feel confident in saying that an Eli Drinkwitz offense is one that goes pretty slow as far as pace goes, will run the ball. If you're given the option of 2, they will choose run as many times as they can. They will sprinkle in some quick passes, some deep shots if they have the guys for it. But they're going to be efficiency first. They're going to run the ball. They're going to try and maximize their opportunities by utilizing a great kicker and then lean on their defense to, steal a couple possessions, flip the field for them, and put them in a position to win. I think that's what an Eli Drinkwitz offense is going to be. And I think 2023 was the optimized version of that because you had a Heisman candidate at running back, a healthy quarterback, mostly healthy quarterback for the entire year, and great wide receivers. And this year you don't have a Heisman Trophy candidate at running back. You don't have a healthy quarterback, and you don't have a reliable kicker anymore, at least not from beyond 50. So I think this is what we can expect Missouri to be year to year. This kind of offense, and which is jarring if you grew up with 2006 to 2013 Missouri, which started as kind of a pass first, second, and third, morphed into a more balanced attack. But it took a while to get there, and it was points. It was 40, win shootouts, 40 to 35, stuff like that. So it's jarring and it feels weird. At the end of the day, you just want to put up points and win. But from a stylistic standpoint, throw away the whatever works. Okay, let's throw that away. Would you prefer a team that puts up a bunch of points and has to win a shootout, or who puts up very little points, very few points, and wins in kind of grindy, white knuckly fashion?
Oh man, that's a great question because I'm not sure I have a preference, to be honest.
Okay.
I think I actually, because we've seen the extreme other end where we've seen Mizzou teams that have put up 45 points a game, and then you really had to white knuckle it at the end. On the other end, can we get enough stops at the end to hold on and win this game? Who's going to have the ball at the end is going to score and is going to win. We've seen that team, and then we've seen this team on this end. I think I kind of, now that I'm thinking out loud, I think I kind of like this version, to be honest. One with a good defense. I will take a team with a good defense and a questionable offense over a good offense and a please show up today defense any day of the week. And I don't, you maybe call me old school or what, I don't know, but the defense, if you have a consistent defense that you can count on game in and game out, regardless of what the offense does, you're going to be in the game.
No.
If you have a great offense that is and a really shaky defense, you're going to come up against a day whether they're just the rhythm's off or you're playing a really good defense where that offense just isn't going to get the job done to the degree that you need it to do for your shaky defense to keep you in the game. And so I think when I have to think about what I want to depend on, I would much rather depend on the consistent defense at low possession games. Maybe it gets a little ugly and you have to grind it out a little bit, but the room for error is less for sure, but also you're going to be, what you can count on game in and game out. For the most part, there is the exception that we've seen this year. The Texas A&M game was a wild exception to that. Still no real reason I can figure out why that happened other than the team was just not ready to play. It was just very bizarre. But every other, and then the Alabama game there was injuries and that was DOA on arrival. So 9 times out of 10, this team's going to be competitive, and I'm going to take that over hoping. Well, are they going to show up? Who's going to show up? I hope they show up. Usually they show up. So I'll take that.
Well, I already showed my bias. I prefer a dynamic offense. It's more fun that way. I don't have as much fun watching this team play because it feels like you're leaving points on the board. It feels like you are not utilizing the pieces that you have correctly, because at the end of the day, Luther Burden's getting targeted more than almost anybody else, and he's still at like 600 yards on the year. It's just like, oh my God, let him loose. Let him loose. You look at Ohio State, you look at Ole Miss, you look at Alabama to a certain extent. You think of like these high flying offenses that are just points, and sometimes they're moving fast, sometimes they're moving okay, but it's like there's a lot of reps. They maximize their opportunities. So like the favorite, if you're a favorite, if you have a athletic advantage, those teams let those dogs run. They let them loose. They let that athleticism show, because over 15, 16 possessions, eventually that athleticism is going to outdo whatever the defense is doing, because the offense always knows what it's doing. The defense doesn't always know what you're doing. And you can let that athleticism run away and get enough points and pull away and break serve and win the game. On the flip side, what Mizzou does is very underdog. It's very, because right now the counter to the blue blood teams that run that up tempo, fast paced offense is to slow it down and just mash them and slow and make it uncomfortable and remove that athleticism advantage, or at least shrink it so that they don't have 16 possessions, they have 10. And hopefully their crappy ones happen in those 10 instead of the 16 kind of washing it out. So I prefer that. I think it's more fun. I don't know which one wins more. Obviously, we've seen both styles win. And right now, the underdog tactic is to slow it down, while the favorite tactic is to speed it up. At some point, that is going to switch. But I don't know. I don't like it as much. I don't enjoy it as much. I love winning. I think it's very funny that Mizzou has such great record under Eli Drinkwitz in one-score games, even after this week. It's not aesthetically pleasing to me. And I do love a good, smash him in the mouth, but I don't know, man. Give me 52-45. That's just fun as hell.
I don't know. I think we might have different definitions of fun. I do enjoy watching my team score a lot of points. There's no doubt there, but I do not enjoy having to just hold on to the roller coaster ride that is a secondary man with your Darnell Terrells and your not to throw shade on Darnell himself. He was a great Tiger, but the 2006 era Mizzou secondary 2000 was not one of the strongest of the programs in the program's history.
Boy, and you can put 30 years of Missouri secondary being stinky. Like, that's fine.
I've seen that before, and it's been very unfun to have to like, okay, we know, get it, just let them score already so we can get the ball back, and hopefully we're going to score, and maybe we could hold them to a field goal, and we score a touchdown at the very end and we win the game. That provides way more stress in my life than I prefer. So let's slow it down. Let's keep my heart rate down. Grind it out, and But either way, as you said, winning is fun, and I'm going to be happy if there's a W at the end of the rainbow.
Whatever it takes to win, man. But this year, there have been no easy wins, not a single one. I mean, yes, Murray State, yes, Buffalo, okay, but you weren't worried heading into those. Boston College, Vanderbilt, there's a little question in your head, and that was close. A&M, I guess UMass was not close either, but you get the idea. Any real competition. Even, a team ranked in the SP plus 60, 70 range, nothing has been easy. And I went back and looked at Eli Drinkwitz over the years. Nathan Hurst, do you know how many times Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri has beaten a Power 4 team by more than 8 points? Do you know how many times that is?
Power 4 team.
Yeah, don't talk about FCS.
Power 4. He's coached in probably close to 60 games at this point.
Almost 5 years of data, yes.
Well, against Power 4 teams, cut that down to maybe, I guess we'll call it like 45 games. He's probably beaten them 5 times.
Okay. 5 times. Oh, very maybe conservative 6. There. Okay. 10 times. 10 times.
Okay. More than I expected.
Let's walk through them. You had Kentucky in 2020. That was 20-10. You had Vanderbilt in 2020, which was 41-0. That was a very funny game.
I forgot 2020. They actually put up some serious scores in that weird year.
They had Larry Roundtree, man. Like, it was the Larry show. And so in 2021, you had at Vanderbilt, you beat them 37-28. In 2022, you went to South Carolina and won 23-10. That was also a very funny game. And then and then all the rest are 2023. At Vanderbilt, 38-21. At Kentucky, 38-21. South Carolina at home, 34-12. Tennessee at home, 36-7. At Arkansas, 48-14. And then versus Ohio State, 14-3. You'll notice none of those happened this year. None of them. And 6 of the 10 happened last year with one of the greatest Mizzou teams of all time. So it doesn't happen a lot. Okay. It's actually, I have the numbers right here. Probably should have pulled it up, but I didn't. Haha, I am silly. Let's see. How many times has he played a Power 4 team? He is. Do you want to guess his record against Power 4 teams? Just off the top of your head?
It's probably almost exactly 500, maybe slightly above 500 now.
Yeah, 24-23, 51%. Okay. So of those 47 games, he's only beat 10 by more than 8 points. That's a lot. That's a lot of games, and that's not a lot of multiple scores. Now, let me ask you another question. How many times has Eli Drinkwitz beaten a Power 4 team or scored more than 40 points against a Power 4 team?
Probably like 4 times, and then at least 3 of those were in 2020. Maybe 5 times, and 4 of those were in 2020, something like that.
Well, you should have stuck with your first answer. That's 4 times, 3 of them in 2020. LSU, 45-41, Vanderbilt, 41-0, Arkansas, 50-48, and then at Arkansas last year, 48-14. This is what he does. He does not beat teams by multiple scores, at least ones that are peer programs. He does not put up 40 points. It's 10 possessions. That's it. Make the most of what you got, and then win it late because you put your team in a position to win. Questionable clock management aside, you kept it close so that you have a quarterback and a kicker that you trust to win the game. That's how he does it. And a defense. Yep. And the defense let us down last week. That's just how it goes. That's how it goes.
Yep.
So if I had to tell you, this is how it's going to be forever, Nathan Hurst. And you might get a year here or there where he starts scoring 40 and winning by multiple possessions. But like, as long as he wins, you're good with this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What if he starts losing like this?
If they start losing like this, then that completely changes the game. But if he was losing 45-42, I would feel the exact same way as if he was losing 24-21 every week. Yeah. So ultimately, it comes down to what is it, a W or an L in the scorebook? But I'm totally fine if this is the way that he has found to maximize the program to win as many games as they can. Because despite a healthy NIL budget, despite increased recruiting, this team will still and will always be at a talent deficit relative to the top end of the SEC. This may be the way that the only way to win at that level.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then then he's found a way to make that work. And certainly the last 2 years, he's 18-5. So he's made it work so far. We'll see how he does in the next generation of players once Brady Cook is gone, once Luther Burden is gone.
Weiss is gone.
Weiss, yes. Once this wave of excellent Tigers has moved on, we will see if he's able to regenerate that same success. I mean, and that'll be very interesting to see in the next few years.
Next year will be the first year that he starts a quarterback that he recruited. That'll be year 6. Just throwing that out there. That's be very interesting. But speaking of quarterback, Brady Cook, he's injured. I think we all knew that. We all know. I know you all forgot about the ankle, but it's the wrist too. A little nugget dropped from today. Eli Drinkwitz said that Brady Cook cannot flip his wrist. Can't do it. Our intrepid reporter, Quentin Corpuel, was out at the game on Saturday, and he took pictures of Brady Cook throwing the ball. And through that Zapruder grainy film, you could see kind of how he had a very flat hand when he let the ball go. And at the time, Q was like, well, I don't know what this means, but it's just, I found it interesting. And then of course, Eli comes out and says, yeah, he can't snap it. Which obviously affects how you throw. Now there's a couple of different ways you can throw a football. A lot of it's full body, but there still needs to be rotation on there. And if you can't snap it like that, you can't flip it, then that kind of takes some of that rotation off. Now, Brady Cook was not inaccurate on Saturday. He's 21 of 31. And it didn't seem like he was missing dudes terribly. So it didn't seem to be a problem, but I think it mostly affects, the passes that he can throw. A lot of the stuff, especially early game, was close to the line of scrimmage, trying to, break one. But yeah, I mean, I'm famously not a quarterback, especially an elite level one. But I mean, how do we feel about this information being out there? What do you think that means going forward?
I mean, it is. I don't think it means anything. Because he played pretty well, all things considered. So is he 100% no? And he's probably not going to be the rest of the season. But hopefully, it slowly gets better, or he slowly gets more comfortable with a different motion as he has more reps and more reps. The one thing I did notice, it seemed like actually, his accuracy on the deep ball was better because he actually actually connected on a few of them for the first time all season. Where I think it really affected him was those short throws that, as you said, there were several misses he had with pretty open receivers that he just dirted it right in front of their feet on pretty short throws, especially going back to the very first drive of the game. Theo Weiss, open receiver, a healthy Brady Cook hits him right in the chest for a first down and continues that drive, which may very well have ended in a touchdown. Instead, it was a very low throw right at his ankles. Theo has to go down. May have caught it, may have not. They ruled that he didn't, and they didn't review it. And that the rest is history. But that's one example. There were probably three other times where the throw was at the feet of a receiver, and then they didn't really have a shot at it. And I would say that's because he just lacked the touch that you need with the injured wrist to make those. Because I think those shorter throws are probably a lot more touch than full arm. When you're throwing it deep, you put your whole body into it, and that might be affected a little less. The wrist might have less to do with a 40-yard pass as opposed to a 10-yard pass.
I'm thinking about it now. There's one pass kind of earlier in the game where he was flushed right, and he had Brett Norfleet in front of him, and he had Theo Weiss kind of to the left and a little bit further down, and he tried to get at Theo, and it was at his feet. And at the time, I thought, oh, he's not pressing off of his ankle, is what I thought at the time. But now, it could have been both, but
it could have been both. I mean, when you have a bad ankle and a bad wrist, sometimes it's probably hard to tell what's causing the biggest problem, because they're probably both not making his life any easier.
Yeah. But this is just how it is. I mean, he went all through 22 with a torn labrum. He went through 23. Remember, he kind of had that weird knee issue against Kansas State, and that never seemed to really figure itself out. And now he's injured again. I'm not saying this is like a great what if, as if he's, his injuries are holding him back from a Heisman, but I do wonder, what happens when Eli Drinkwitz has 3 full healthy years of Brady Cook. What changes? Do the one score games get better? Are there fewer of them? Do you win Auburn because of that? Do you win? I'll go through any of the losses in 22. Like, what changes and what does that look like when you have a healthy Brady Cook? Because he's not an NFL guy. He's not the most talented quarterback we've ever seen. But boy, and I'm the numbers guy, but he's got the clutch gene, and he figures out a way to win, even with a bum everything. And I just wonder what he would have looked like. You can't help but think, and I don't know what that looks like, but he's a trooper, but feels like we kind of missed out on some stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of what ifs, because honestly, the number of games we've seen where he's been 100% healthy, at least in the last 3 years, of the 30-ish games he's played, 35 games he's played, he's probably been healthy completely healthy for 6 or 7 of those, maybe. Yeah. And we saw this year as a 5th-year senior against Auburn, when he was on the happy juice and was not feeling anything, he looked great. He looked great. And it was in that clutch moment, which he has had multiple clutch moments in his career as well. So add those two things together, he looked really good for those 3 drives or however many he was on the field in the second half of that game. So it's a big what if. It's a bummer, but that's football. You're gonna deal with injuries every year, and some guys just seem more likely to get injured than others, even if it happens to be a different injury every time, which is it's not like it's one specific ailment that he's dealt with over and over and over again.
Yeah. And every time I do my count the ifs piece that before the season starts, injury, astral assistance is part of it, and injuries are part of that astral assistance. You have to get lucky sometimes. And last year's group got very lucky. It's not that they didn't have injuries, it's that the injuries that they did have, specifically at linebacker, were able to be managed. And they really didn't have any on the line. The quarterback, he got it kind of shocked to the knee, but that was manageable. Everything was very, very manageable. Even with Ennis Rakestraw rotating in and out, you had an answer for that. And this year, you just too many. There's too many of them, and that's not why they got shut out by Alabama, but it's certainly part of it. It's not why you lost Texas A&M, but that plays into it. And this, that's just how it goes. But what is this team? I feel like, again, with the navel gazing and almost the finality of the season, even though with 3 games to play, there's still things to play for. You have Mississippi State this week. You have Arkansas the week after that. And then you're looking at whatever bowl game you're going to go to. And it's not going to be a playoff, but there's plenty of good teams that Missouri can play. But what can this season be when you're looking at this and like the possible outcomes? 0-3, 3-3. Like, what can this team be, Hurst? What can it be?
It can finish. This could be a good season. I'm looking more like what can this season be remembered as? When we look back 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, what do we think of the season as? Last year, I think we would classify that either as a historic or at least a great season. 2013 was a historic or great season. 2014, I would say, a great season. When we look back on 2024, we can still look back on it as a good season. I think great is out the window at this point. We can't get to 10 wins in the regular season, out of the playoff hunt. Great is kind of out there, but good is still there. The reason is because this team can still win 10 games. If they win out, they can win 10 games. And I'm not even going to put winning a 10th game in the bowl game, making it conditional on that to be considered a good season, because bowl games are a crapshoot. You never know who's actually going to play. You don't know what the other team, who on their team's going to play. So I'm going to look at the regular season. If they win the next 2 games and finish 9-3, that will be a good season. The reason why is there are 3 Mizzou teams in the history of the 134-year history of Mizzou that have finished with 9 wins. All right. Now there have been 6 others that have finished with 10, but only 3 in the entire program history have finished the regular season with 9 wins. It was 1969, 2008, and 1890. Sorry, let's go all the way back. 1890, 1969, 2008. That's 3. So this would be number 4. If they win out, they finish with 9 wins, 9-3. That's a good season. If you're doing something that has only been done 3 other times in 134 years, that is a good season. Now throw a bowl win on there, cherry on top. That'd be lovely. But you go 9-3, and that's not. That's also a winning record in the SEC at 5-3. That is nothing to sneeze at. That's a good season. Yeah. That's not to say this season couldn't take a downturn and finish worse than that. There's a few other scenarios. I mean, this season could still very much end up as a disaster. It could. This could be a disaster if this team loses out and loses all 3 games. If they lose to Mississippi State, who is the worst team in the SEC, bar none.
Yep.
They lose a rivalry game to Arkansas, which we don't lose, but they were to lose it somehow. Possible. Then they go to just the dog water tier 3 bowl game. If they lose those 2 games, they will not be going to a nice bowl. They will be 7-5. They will go to the Birmingham Bowl, maybe. I don't know all the ones on the top of my head. Not a great bowl. Not a bowl that we want to be. Maybe the Gasparilla Bowl for a second time in 3 years or 4 years. Yeah, 3 years. And then you lose to whatever moribund program that they're playing in that game to go 7-6. That would be a disaster. Considering adding in all the context, considering what the expectations were before this season came in, to finish the season 7-6 with the talent on this team, that'd be a disaster. Do I think that's going to happen? No, I don't. I think this team is much more likely to finish with a good season, to go 9-3, 10-3, to finish all the way down there. But there's kind of stratified levels. It could be disappointing if they only win 1 game the rest of the way. It could be okay. Maybe let's say they go 1-2 to end the season, but kind of end on a high note, win their bowl game, finish 9-4, which once again, 9-win season. That'd be a little bit different kind of a 9-win season, but it would still be a 9-win season. So I would say that's an okay year, not a good year, but an okay year. So there's still a lot to play for, especially thinking about this program, because now that the playoff is out of the window, out of the picture this year, kind of start looking forward into the future. What are they playing for? They're not just playing for this season anymore. They're playing for setting this program up for success in future years. And there's a lot of meat left on that bone. To finish 10-3, there's a lot you can point to in the recruiting trail, both in the high school recruiting trail and the transfer portal. Say, look, we've won 10 games 2 years in a row. This is where you want to be. We've put X number of players in the NFL the last 2 years. This is where you want to be. That is a very powerful message, and that's how you're going to continue to build this program and sustain, not just sustain, but sustain it into next year and the next year and then the next year, is to do that. And it's a lot harder to do that when you're 8-5, when you're 7-6, than it is if you're 9-3, 9-4, 10-3. You know that Drinkwitz knows that. You know the coaching staff knows that. You know they're preaching that to this team every day in the locker room. The question is, or the answer, it's really going to depend on if that gets absorbed by the team or not.
Sure. Yeah. Win for recruiting, win for draft, win for the future. You're seeing Jamal Roberts play a lot. That's good. He's around next year. Quan Lacey's coming in there. Yep. Josh Manning is, because Mookie Cooper's been injured. Josh Manning's been in the lineup. Marquise Johnson's coming back from injury. Poor Mekhi Miller has been targeted like 80 times and has 3 catches because they keep throwing him just the most duck balls ever. But it's play for the future. Get some stuff in there, and the defensive rotation. You can roll a lot of guys in there, and win for recruiting. I just start with beating Mississippi State because they are the worst team in the SEC. They are the 6th worst Power 4 program in the country according to SP Plus, and they don't do things very well. Their offense is 97th. They are last in just way too many defensive statistics here. There's just if you want to see Missouri put up 40, I think this could be the game. Now, I know they're not going to because that requires, 7 trips and, 4.5 points per trip. And, you got to really stretch it. But, this could be it. They are so bad. That secondary, oh, my God. I can't. I was writing the preview today, and it was just it's unbelievable. I mean, there are 134 teams in the FBS. They are 134th in success rate allowed. 52% of opponent plays are successful plays. 52%. That's every other one. They're 134th in passing success rate. They allow a 53% success rate through the air. You just scroll through these stats. I'm like, I got nothing. There's nothing that this defense does well. I feel very good about this, though. How about you?
I think if we're going to pick our favorite Mississippi State defensive stat, it's that they have 7 sacks as a team on the year.
Yeah.
7. Their leading sack. Do you want to guess what their leading, the total number of sacks their leading sack getter has this year?
The leading sack getter, I don't know, 2.
1.5. Brandon Jennings has 1.5 sacks, and he is the in the clubhouse leader of sacks. Their next leading sack getter is a guy named Dinkins. He has 1 tackle on the season, and that was a sack. So good for you, Dinkins.
Good job.
Everyone else has a half a sack, so there's a lot of guys with a half a sack. Okay. 7 sacks that they have gotten on the year, and I think that is. I mean, their secondary is bad, but that's probably, in my opinion, the biggest reason why they're so bad is they get 0 pressure on the quarterback. And so hopefully a gimpy Brady Cook will not have to scramble around too much, and we'll have plenty of time to get the ball downfield.
Yeah. And by the way, their rushing defense is 127th in success rate. 50% success rate on that. So, there's just nothing that they do well. I mean, frankly, with this game, you're on the road, your quarterback's injured. Just run the ball. Nate Noel's feeling frisky. He had a great game last week. He seems to be free from his injury. There's 4 guys I want to see run the ball. I want to see Nate Noel. I want to see Marcus Carroll. I want to see Jamal Roberts. I want to see Quan Lacey. I want to get DeForest Jones out there. We've seen him too. I don't care. I just want to see these guys. I want to see the offensive line just mash because this defense stinks. And if you want to throw in a couple passes, obviously we got 2 games left with Luther Burden because he's not playing in the bowl game. Theo Weiss is only around for a couple more games. I want to see them get involved a little bit, but don't force it. I really don't think you need to. This defense stinks, and I think you can do just about anything that you want and get away with it. Now, on the flip side, Mississippi State's offense. Their head coach, Jeff Levy, has been an offensive coordinator for a long time. He's been at Ole Miss. He's been at Oklahoma. Now he's at Mississippi State. He is his own offensive coordinator. As Mizzou fans, we know that's a very silly choice, but that is what he is doing right now, stretching himself thin by being head coach and offensive coordinator at the same time. If you had to pick a unit for the Bulldogs that's good, it is the offense. They're technically ranked 67th in the country, but they also technically don't do anything well. They are 113th in overall success rate, 109th in running the ball, 104th in passing the ball. So you go, what the heck do they do well? They do pretty good in 3rd downs. They do pretty well in 4th downs. And if they have a scoring opportunity, they usually finish with about, 4.5 points per opportunity. It's just that they don't get there. So again, this is a funky style of offense that throws it a lot, mostly to the outside receivers, usually deep. that is the thing that Mizzou stinks at. We know that. They're going to try to speed this up. They're 6th in the nation in pace. So this is a clash of styles, and whoever wins out is going to probably win the game. Because if they get this thing going, like we've seen it, this defense can't hold up.
Right. Their offense is a little scary in the fact that the one thing that they do pretty okay is the one thing that Mizzou is really bad at doing, and that's defending downfield passing. Not a short passing game, but a downfield passing game, and that's what they want to do. Jeff Levy is of the Art Briles tree, and so that is a very downfield passing tree. That's where he came up in his first college coaching job. So that's very much ingrained.
Father-in-law too.
Yes. Oh yeah, and he married Art Briles' daughter. So it's very ingrained in him to throw the ball deep and do it often. So that's the one thing that's a little scary about this team. They are starting a true freshman quarterback who, to give him credit, has done very well for being a true freshman quarterback. Kind of because their starter Blake Shaven was hurt early in the year and has been out the whole season. You said that Mizzou probably won't get to 40 points because they run really slow. I think they might get to 40 points, and that's because Mississippi State goes really fast. And they're going to throw the ball a lot, which means it's going to slow the game down just in terms of how often the clock is running. And their defense is really bad. So I think that's going to, in effect, create more possessions for Mizzou to score points. Mississippi State will score some points too. They've scored points against just about even really good SEC defenses. They've scored a decent amount of points. Georgia, they put up
21,
close to 30 points. Tennessee, they didn't do great, but I mean, Arkansas's got an okay defense, and they put up 28 points on Arkansas. So they put up points on good defenses. So if you look in the third quarter and Mississippi State has 24 points, 28 points at that point, don't be shocked if that's the case. Just hope and expect that Mizzou will have 35 to 40 at that point. Because that's how bad their defense is. It's going to be back and forth, and hopefully Mizzou will force an extra turnover or get a couple 3 and outs, because this team will also go 3 and out if you let them throw it 3 incompletion 3 times, and you get the ball back and run it some more and further wear down their defense. That's where this game, Mizzou can create a 14 to 17 point lead, and then hopefully just kind of hold that cushion through the end of the game, which kind of seems like what it's been the case for Mississippi State all season.
Yeah, I mean, against non-FCS, non-UMass teams, Mississippi State's been held under 20 points only 3 times. Once was against the 4th best defense in Tennessee, once was against the 2nd best defense in Texas, and then once was against the 51st best defense in Toledo, which is an outlier of every outlier that you can think of. But yeah, they scored, like I said, 31 against Georgia, 24 against A&M, 25 against Arkansas, and then 23 against Arizona State, 28 against Florida. Like they will do it. Now they don't win, but they put up points in the process. So, you just, when Mizzou has the ball, run it, go slow. Really give your defense some time to look at the iPads, catch their breath, and just put some distance between you and that offense. This is going to get weird. This is one of those teams that Missouri has not beaten. On their blackout bingo card, this is one of the squares that's still open. This would be a great time to do it. Okay, we finally beat Auburn early in the year. This would be a great time to beat Mississippi State. We'll try Alabama next year. In your mind, Hurst, does Mizzou do it? And what is your score prediction?
Yeah, Mizzou will win. It'll be kind of one of those. It'll feel a little close or look by on the scoreboard a little closer than it is. Well, kind of always the case for Mizzou, but don't freak out if this is only a 10-point game midway through the third quarter. But this is one of those games where, as long as Mizzou doesn't turn the ball over a bunch of times, they'll get a nice little lead, and they'll just kind of fall, dog walk Mississippi State, pun unintended, the rest of the way. That's kind of what I see this game going like a lot of Mississippi State games have gone, where they've gotten down early and started throwing the ball a whole lot, and they score them points, but they can't stop the other team, and they're already down by 2 or 3 scores, and so it just kind of stays a 17-ish point deficit the rest of the way at that point. So I see that. I see it going that way. I see Mizzou winning. I think they will break 40. I would say it's something around 41-24 or so, 41-28, something around there.
Yeah. I'll believe it when I see it. I'm going to say 38-20. Which probably means it's going to be like 35-35, with the last 2 minutes, and Mizzou has the ball because that's just how it goes. But yeah, just win. Just win. That's all we need. Style points are not necessary here. We're not trying to impress anybody. We're just trying to get the win. So we will see how that goes. But that is going to be the show for today. Obviously, we will get back with you everything that happens on Saturday. You can follow rockmnation.com and read all of the stories on there. Hurst is going to have something. I'm going to have something. Quentin's going to have something. Nadine's going to have something. We're going to break this thing down for you once it gets done. But again, that's the show for today. As always, we appreciate the downloads and the subscriptions. You can leave a comment or rate us. We love all types of feedback from you all. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Nate G. Edwards. He's at Burst to Hurst. And of course, you can follow the Rockin' flagship at Rockin' Nation and our podcasting outlet at Rockin' Radio. I'm on Blue Sky. A lot of you have been following me over there out of nowhere. So I'm over there. You can find me there as well as Rockin' Nation, Rockin' Plus, Rockin' Radio, all that good stuff. But we appreciate you tuning in this time. We'll try to do better next time. And until then, MIZ.
ZOU.